Admiral Dren'zak leaned forward in his command chair, antenna twitching with amusement as the sensor readings confirmed what his subordinates had reported. A single missile. One pathetic human weapon, launched from their dying planet toward his magnificent armada of 5,000 warships. They send one missile against us? He couldn't contain his laughter, a harsh clicking sound that echoed across the bridge. Display it on the main screen. Everyone should witness this. This final joke from the doomed species. The massive viewscreen flickered to life, showing a solitary projectile cutting through Earth's atmosphere. Small, unimpressive, almost laughably primitive compared to Valtraxian technology. Send a message to all ships, Dren'zak ordered, mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among his kind. Tell them to watch the humans' last, desperate attempt at resistance. This will be recorded for the Imperial Archives as proof of their inferiority. Commander Telva approached the Admiral's station, tactical tablet in hand. Perhaps it contains their surrender terms? Or some final communication? Surrender? Dren'zak scoffed. After what happened at their Mars colony? No, this is simply pathetic. His mind drifted back to first contact, barely 2 Earth months ago. The Valtraxian scout ships had approached openly, broadcasting standard greetings. The humans, predictably paranoid, had responded with caution. Diplomatic channels had been established, cultural exchanges initiated. Everything proceeding according to the Collective's standard assimilation protocol. Until the humans discovered the truth. That every species, welcomed into the Collective eventually became nothing more than resources to be harvested. The Collective had grown fat on thousands of conquered worlds, and Earth was simply next on the menu. The humans' declaration of war had been immediate, surprising, and ultimately futile. Their orbital defenses had fallen within hours. Their space fleet, primitive and small, obliterated in days. Now only their home planet remained, its surface already scarred by precision strikes against military installations. Admiral, the sensor officer called out, interrupting Dren'zak's reminiscence. The missile's trajectory is unusual. Unusual how? Dren'zak waved a dismissive claw. It's one weapon against thousands of ships. What possible threat could it pose? It's not following a direct course toward any of our vessels. It appears to be maneuvering. Dren'zak frowned, 6 eyes narrowing as he studied the projected course on his personal display. The human missile was indeed behaving strangely, executing course corrections that seemed almost random. What are they thinking? He muttered. One missile can't possibly make a difference now. As the bridge crew returned to their duties, still chuckling about the humans' apparent desperation, a small, nagging doubt crept into Dren'zak's mind. In all his cycles of military service, he'd never seen a species respond quite this way when facing extinction. One missile. What could they possibly hope to accomplish? #one shot, one kill #part 2. The pursuit commander Lopi hunched over the tactical station, her 4 arms working frantically across multiple control surfaces. What had started as an object of ridicule was quickly becoming a source of frustration. This makes no sense, she hissed, compound eyes flicking between displays. The missile just executed another course change. That's the 12th correction in under 7 minutes. Dren'zak moved to her station, his earlier amusement fading. Our tracking systems are the finest in 7 galaxies. How can they not predict its path? The problem isn't our systems, Admiral. Lopi's voice carried a note of professional concern. The problem is that this missile shouldn't be capable of such maneuvers. It's exceeding typical human propulsion specifications by at least 300%. And the patterns? They're not following any known evasion algorithm. On the main display, the missile suddenly dropped velocity, then accelerated at an impossible angle, narrowly avoiding a defensive barrage from the nearest Valtraxian cruiser. That's impossible, one of the junior officers whispered. Dren'zak slammed a claw against the console. Nothing is impossible, just improbable. Dispatch intercept squadrons immediately. I want that thing destroyed. Within moments, a dozen fighter craft launched from the nearest carrier, sleek and deadly. They formed a perfect pursuit formation, their pilots among the Collective's finest. The first fighter approached firing range, weapons charged. The missile responded by executing a tight spiral maneuver that no human craft had ever demonstrated. The fighter overshot, and the missile actually accelerated toward it from behind, passing so close that it triggered proximity warnings before veering away. By the void, Lopi breathed. It's toying with them. One by one, the fighters failed to intercept. Some because they couldn't match the missile's agility, others because their targeting system simply couldn't lock onto it properly. Captain Morinth, leader of the intelligence division, approached with characteristic caution. Admiral, we should consider the possibility that this is a diversion. Perhaps the humans are planning something else entirely, and this anomaly is meant to distract us. The bridge had fallen silent. The initial mockery of the humans' apparent futile gesture had been replaced by growing tension. Even the most junior crew members could sense that something was wrong. Scan the entire system again, Dren'zak ordered. Look for any sign of additional human activity. As the crew hurried to comply, Dren'zak watched the missile continue its baffling journey through his fleet. Not attacking, not retreating. Just moving. Almost as if it were searching for something. Or someone. The uncomfortable thought settled in Dren'zak's mind. What if this wasn't a weapon at all? What if it was something else entirely? Something they hadn't anticipated? Admiral, Lopi called out, voice tight with alarm. It's changing course again. And this time I think I know where it's heading. #1 shot, 1 kill #Part 3, the Revelation Science Officer Quell burst onto the bridge, pale blue skin flushed almost purple with exertion. Admiral. I've analyzed the missile's trajectory variations. It's not targeting any of our ships. Dren'zak turned sharply. Not targeting our ships? Then what is it? The command nexus, Lopi interrupted, her voice falling to a horrified whisper. It's on a course for the central command nexus. A cold silence descended on the bridge. The command nexus was the heart of the Valtraxian fleet's operational capability, a specialized vessel containing the quantum computing arrays that coordinated their entire invasion force. Impossible, Dren'zak breathed. How could they even know about the nexus? Its existence is classified at the highest level. Unknown, sir, Quell responded, manipulating her data pad frantically. But the behavioral analysis is conclusive. It's been searching for a specific electromagnetic signature, the exact frequency emitted by our command protocols. As if responding to being discovered, the missile suddenly changed its behavior. Its speed doubled, then tripled, breaking every physical limitation the Valtraxians had calculated for human technology. All ships, defensive positions around the nexus. Deploy countermeasures. Electromagnetic pulse barrage, pattern Omega-6. Dren'zak bellowed, panic edging into his usually confident voice. The fleet responded immediately, ships moving to form a protective barrier. Defense systems fired a coordinated wave of energy designed to disable any electronic system within range. The missile seemed to hesitate for a fraction of a second, then altered its course slightly and continued, completely unaffected. It adapted, Quell whispered. How is that possible? Dren'zak's mind flashed back to the intelligence briefings before the invasion. The humans were described as technologically primitive but stubborn. Their AI research had been dismissed as rudimentary, decades behind the Collective's capabilities. We underestimated them, he realized aloud. Captain Morinth accessed a classified database, his expression growing increasingly alarmed. Admiral, 3 Earth months ago, there was an unusual broadcast from their planet. We intercepted but dismissed it as random noise. It was substantial. Terabytes of data, compressed. Quell's eyes widened with sudden understanding. That's not a conventional missile. It's a carrier. For an artificial intelligence. An autonomous, self-learning combat system. The missile broke through the final defensive line, its surface beginning to glow as it accelerated toward the command nexus. Why would they send only one? Lopi asked, bewildered. The answer hit Dren'zak like a physical blow. Because they only needed one. On the display, the weapon was now seconds away from impact. Dren'zak watched, paralyzed with the sudden, terrible realization that the Valtraxian Collective, with all its superior technology and overwhelming numbers, had completely misunderstood what they were facing. Evacuate the Nexus, he roared, but his voice held no hope. All ships, prepare for, the missile made contact, #1 shot, 1 kill #Part 4, the reckoning. The missile struck the command nexus with surprising gentleness, almost like a docking procedure rather than an attack. There was no explosion. No destruction. No immediate catastrophic damage. For 3 heartbeats, relief flooded through Dren'zak's thorax. It failed, someone whispered on the bridge. Their weapon failed. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. The main display froze, pixelated, and went dark. Secondary systems sputtered and died. The familiar, constant hum of the ship's power core faltered, then faded to silence. Status report, Dren'zak demanded. But the communications officer was frantically trying to revive her dead console. Sir, Quell's voice cut through the growing chaos, unnaturally calm. The missile has introduced some kind of self-replicating code into the Nexus. It's spreading through our entire network. Isolate the systems. Sever all connections to the Nexus immediately. Too late, Lopi responded, staring at her emergency tablet, the only technology still functioning. The virus has already propagated through the quantum entanglement protocols. Every ship connected to the command network is infected. Throughout the massive Valtraxian fleet, ships began drifting out of formation as their guidance systems failed. Weapons powered down. Shields collapsed. Communications went silent. 5,000 vessels, rendered helpless in less than 30 seconds. Captain Morinth managed to access one of the few operational external sensors. What he saw drained the color from his face. Admiral. Earth. They're launching. Thousands of missiles. Conventional weapons. All of them. Dren'zak moved woodenly to the viewport, watching as the first wave of human weapons streaked toward his defenseless fleet. So simple. So elegant. So devastatingly effective. They used our arrogance against us, he said quietly. 1 shot to blind us. Thousands to kill us. As explosions began to bloom across his once mighty armada, Dren'zak found himself feeling an emotion he'd never experienced in his long military career: respect for an enemy. The humans had identified the single critical weakness in the Collective's unified command structure and exploited it perfectly. The Valtraxians had brought overwhelming force. The humans had brought overwhelming intelligence. As his flagship shuddered under the impact of the first missiles, Dren'zak's final thought was that the Collective had made a terrible mistake in choosing Earth as a target. #Epilogue. General Aria Taylor stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her posture relaxed for the first time in months. The Trojan Horse strategy worked exactly as intended, she explained, gesturing to the tactical display showing the remnants of the Valtraxian fleet drifting harmlessly in Earth orbit. One missile carrying our most advanced military AI. Its sole mission was to locate and infiltrate their command network. And they never suspected? Asked a council member. Taylor smiled. Their psychological profile indicated a species with a superiority complex. They expected us to throw everything we had at them in desperation. By sending just one missile, we confused them, made them curious rather than immediately defensive. Like baiting a trap, another counselor observed. Exactly. Our AI, designated Odysseus, did the rest. While they were busy trying to understand what we were doing, Odysseus was systematically dismantling their entire command structure from the inside. The council chambers fell silent as the implications settled in. And the Valtraxians, someone finally asked. The survivors have been offered terms, Taylor replied. Including a strong recommendation that they reconsider their expansionist policies. She closed her briefing file with a satisfied tap. Sometimes, victory isn't about who has the biggest stick. It's about knowing exactly where to strike.